They told us not to come here. Over and over. Centuries of warnings burned into the old transmission archives. Quarantine world, they called it. No contact, no harvest, no diplomacy, no conquest. But the Empire. The Empire doesn't listen. When I was promoted to Fleet Commander Theron, they handed me the orders and the smug congratulations. You'll bring Earth under our banner, they said. Make them bend the knee. Their resources are ripe for the taking. I had my doubts, but doubt has no place in the Empire. You follow orders, or you vanish. 30 warships, 2 dreadnoughts, 50,000 soldiers, enough firepower to strip a planet down to its bones. We arrived in Earth's orbit at 0300 hours. No planetary shields detected, no fleet resistance. It looked like an open target, an insult to our strength. My officers laughed. Primitive world, they said. They won't last a day. And I believed them, for a moment. But then the signals started, not human signals, faint bursts on strange frequencies, deep in the background noise, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat, but no known code, no pattern we could crack. We dismissed it as static. A mistake, it wasn't. Our first landing party, 6 dropships, 200 elite troops, touched down on the outskirts of what they called Chicago. By all scans, the city was half abandoned, its power grids erratic. Easy pickings. At first, the silence felt like victory. Then the feed cut out. All 6 dropships, gone. No signal, no beacons, just black. I ordered a second wave. Heavy assault units this time, backed by drones. They never even reached the surface. From the observation deck, I watched as something unseen, tore through the upper atmosphere. One second, the assault transports were intact. The next, shredded, spiraling fireballs streaking across the sky. Panic spread through the fleet. What is that? Enemy weapon? No weapon lock detected. No projectile trails. Just a force we couldn't comprehend. I issued the retreat order. Standard protocol. Regroup, reassess. Too late. The heartbeat signal surged, jamming comms across the entire sector. Our long-range sensors went blind. Sublight engines refused to power. And then the voices began. Not in our ears, in our heads. You were warned. You did not listen. Now you are prey. I gritted my teeth, tried to push the voice out. But my second in command, a veteran of a dozen campaigns, started screaming. He clawed at his own eyes until blood ran down his face. Security had to drag him away. Deck by deck, the crew was unraveling. Men who had stood firm against plasma fire and vacuum storms were now shivering in corners, weeping. And outside the viewport, Earth remained still, quiet. No counterfleet, no missiles, no ships. Just a pale blue world, waiting, a trap. I finally understood. This was no primitive world, no easy conquest. Earth was bait, and we had bitten hard. I slammed my fist against the console, forcing a broken comm channel open. A single, desperate message to the rest of the Empire. Do not come to Earth. It is not what we thought. We are trapped. Repeat. The signal cut. And in the dead silence, I heard the voice again. Now it begins. The words echoed in my skull long after the signal died. Now it begins. The crew was breaking down around me, officers shouting conflicting orders, technicians frozen in their seats, some sobbing like children. Others simply stood staring at nothing, blank-eyed, like puppets with their strings cut. I forced myself to move, forced discipline into my limbs. Someone had to act. Bridge officers, with me, I barked. Secure this deck. Lock all access ports. Helm, get those engines back online. Anything you can give me. They scrambled to obey, but the panic had already spread beyond the bridge. A red warning flashed across the central display. Biosignatures detected. Multiple contacts. Inside the ship. Impossible. We were in orbit. No shuttles had docked. No life forms had boarded. And yet, there they were, moving between decks, spreading fast. "Security teams to decks 6 through 9, I shouted. "Full combat readiness?" No response. I switched channels. "Deck commanders, report." Only static. Dread twisted in my gut. Whatever we were facing, it was already here. I drew my sidearm. A simple pulse pistol, reliable. Point and shoot, but useless if your enemy isn't flesh and blood. Lieutenant Kellen, one of the few still thinking straight, approached with a grim face. "Commander, I think we need to consider evacuation." I almost laughed. "Evacuate where, Lieutenant? We can't even power the thrusters, and you saw what happened to the dropships." He swallowed hard. "Then what do we do?" I didn't have an answer. Not one that didn't sound like madness. I turned to the science officer, Doctor. Varen, a cold, calculating man, not given to superstition. He was pale now, sweat slick on his brow. "You read the transmissions," I said. "You know the old warnings better than anyone. What are we facing?" His voice shook. "Commander, those warnings weren't exaggeration. The archives mentioned a planetary defense system of unknown origin, autonomous, ancient, beyond our tech." I narrowed my eyes. "You mean an AI?" He shook his head violently. "Number not artificial, not mechanical. Something older, something alive." A cold chill slid down my spine. The rumors, the whispers. They'd always said Earth was cursed. Not by machines or weapons, but by something far worse. Something left behind by whatever civilization once thrived here before humans ever rose. But the Empire had dismissed it all as primitive fear-mongering. Ghost stories. Now those ghosts were stalking my ship. A sudden explosion rocked the deck. Emergency lights flickered, alarms howling. "Report!" I shouted. Kellen checked the displays. "Engineering, breach in reactor sublevels. We're venting plasma." Before I could react, the main screen flickered, and the stars outside vanished, replaced by a black void. And then, a face. Human, or close to it. Pale, gaunt, eyes like hollow pits staring through the screen. "You were warned," the thing said, its voice a deep vibration inside our skulls. "You did not listen. Now you belong to us." Without warning, the temperature on the bridge plummeted. Frost formed on the consoles. Breath fogged the air. Some of the younger officers screamed. One dropped dead on the spot. Heart stopped cold. The face faded. The void remained. I forced my voice steady. "Kellen, get a comms link to the fleet. Now." He worked the controls with trembling fingers. "Trying, Commander, but the jamming's getting worse." I turned to Varen. "You said this thing is alive. How do we fight it?" His face was grim. "I don't think we can. The archives speak of entire armadas lost here. Minds turned inside out. Ships twisted into debris. Whatever this force is, it's not bound by physical laws as we know them." I clenched my fists. I refused to die on my knees. But deep inside, I knew. This wasn't a battle we could win through brute force. More alarms, another explosion, this one close, Deck 7, ruptured. Then came the screams, not over comms, through the walls, echoing metal and human terror. Security footage flickered to life on the side monitors. I forced myself to look. Bodies, dozens of them, soldiers, engineers, lying in twisted heaps. Something moved among them, a shape, tall, gaunt, shifting. No clear form, like smoke and bone fused into a mockery of flesh. It drifted down the corridor, untouched by gravity. Every light it passed flickered and died. Where it touched metal, corrosion spread like cancer. Where it touched flesh, worse. Men writhed in agony, veins turning black, eyes glazed with madness before they crumpled. Kellen cursed under his breath. "Gods, what is that thing? Varen answered quietly. A warden. The old texts called them wardens, not living, not dead. Servants of whatever power sleeps beneath Earth's surface. I swallowed bile. And now it's on my ship. I made a decision. Abandon ship protocols, I ordered. Everyone to the pods. Kellen hesitated. Commander, that's an order, I snapped. If even one of us gets out of orbit with a warning, it's worth it. He saluted, pale but determined. Yes, sir. The bridge began clearing. Officers fled to the emergency tubes. The ship groaned beneath us, metal warping, systems failing. I stayed at the command console. If this was my last moment, I'd face it standing. Another pulse, like a heartbeat, shuddered through the ship. The screens burst into static, then cleared. The face was back. You still do not understand, it whispered. You cannot flee. You are part of us now. One by one, the escape pod signals winked out, destroyed, or worse, absorbed. Kellen returned, panting. Commander, they're gone. Every pod. Before he could finish, the lights failed completely. Total darkness. And in that darkness, a presence. I could feel it. Cold fingers brushing my mind, twisting thoughts, dredging up memories I hadn't touched in years, failures, regrets, betrayals. We see you, the voice echoed. We know you. I raised my pistol, futile gesture though it was. Something moved behind me. I spun, fired. The pulse beam vanished into the dark. A whisper brushed my ear. Too late. Then impact. The ship lurched violently. Gravity failed. I slammed into the bulkhead, stars dancing before my eyes. When I staggered up, the viewport showed the fleet, or what remained of it. 20 ships, now drifting hulks. Hulls warped, crews dead or worse. Only my flagship remained, for now. A new signal broke through the static, faint, garbled. Anyone, please, this is Flagship Vanguard. Trapped. Do not approach. Earth is a trap. Repeat, Earth is... The voice cut off in a burst of static. Another ship, another commander, caught in the same snare. I felt something shift inside me then, a grim, cold resolve. No one else was coming. No rescue fleet, no reinforcements. If the Empire was to survive, someone had to send a clear warning. And if I couldn't flee, then I'd fight. To the last breath. I keyed in a last override, a direct pulse beacon, one channel, one message. This is Commander Theron of the Dreadnought Iron Wrath. Earth is not what it seems. It is a trap. The fleet is lost. Do not approach. Repeat, do not approach. Burn this world from your star charts. I hit transmit. And as the beacon pulsed out into the void, I turned to Kellen. We hold this bridge, I said grimly. If we die fighting. He nodded, jaw tight. Somewhere in the dark, the heartbeat pulsed again, and the voice whispered, You will not die yet. The bridge was ice cold. Frost covered the consoles now, the air thick with vapor from our breath. The hum of the engines was gone. Silence reigned, save for the slow, rhythmic pulse that vibrated through the ship. Not mechanical, not natural, like some living heart beating beneath the hull. Beside me, Kellen wiped frost from his visor, pulse pistol clutched tight in his shaking hands. Commander, he whispered, voice hoarse. They're in the walls. I didn't ask who they were. We both knew. The displays flickered again, static crawling across every screen. And then, for a moment, I saw them. Shapes moving between decks, tall, pale, twisting through metal as though it were air. Wardens. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide. But there was nowhere to go. I checked my sidearm. 3 clips left. Meaningless, really. You can't kill a nightmare. Still, it gave me something to hold on to. Something solid. Status on the pulse beacon? I asked, voice flat. Kellen checked the panel. Transmitting. for now. No way to know if it's getting through the interference. It was the only hope we had left, a warning to the Empire. Even if we didn't survive, maybe someone else would listen this time. Maybe. A sudden metallic shriek echoed through the hull. The deck beneath us vibrated, groaning like tortured bone. I rose from the command chair. We're not waiting to die. We take the fight to them. Kellen blinked. You mean, leave the bridge? I nodded. You saw the vids. They're hunting crew, one deck at a time. Sitting here makes us pray. We move. We fight. Or we end up like the rest. He swallowed hard, then squared his shoulders. Understood. We moved out, weapons ready. The corridor lights were dead. Only the emergency strobes remained, casting everything in stuttering red flashes. Blood smeared the walls, not all of it human. Bodies floated in the air where gravity had failed. Some of them were men I'd known for years, veterans of dozens of campaigns. Now, just husks, their faces frozen in silent screams, veins blackened, eyes hollow. Kellen looked away. Gods forgive us. Focus, I said. Keep moving. We headed toward the main reactor core. If I couldn't save the ship, maybe I could destroy it, deny these things their prize. But every step felt heavier. The cold pressed deeper, into bone, into thought. It wasn't just physical, it was inside us now. The voices started again. Software insidious. You cannot fight us, you cannot win. Submit, join. Rest. Kellen stumbled, clutching his head. Commander, they're in my mind. I grabbed his shoulder, forced him to meet my gaze. Ignore them. They want you weak. They want you broken. You're stronger than that. His eyes cleared barely. He nodded. We pushed on. Deck 9 was a graveyard, hull breaches everywhere, atmosphere venting in slow streams of glittering ice, and amid the wreckage, movement. A warden. It floated above the floor, tendrils of shadow coiling from its limbs. No eyes, no face, just a mask of pale bone and void. It turned toward us. The air grew colder still. I fired first. Pulse rounds slammed into it, bright bursts of energy. The creature recoiled, but didn't fall. It drifted forward, untouched. Kellen shouted and joined me, both of us unloading our clips in a deafening barrage. Finally, something gave. The warden shuddered, cracks spreading across its form. With a sound like breaking glass, it dissolved into mist. But the victory was hollow. They're learning, Kellen panted, adapting. I nodded grimly. Next time it won't be that easy. We pressed on, deeper into the wounded ship. Everywhere, signs of battle, of slaughter. One corridor held a squad of Marines, or what was left of them. Their armor was fused to the floor, bodies twisted at impossible angles. And scrawled across the walls, in some foul ichor, were words I recognized from the ancient archives. The sleeper waits. The sleeper feeds. Varen's words came back to me then. Not an AI, not a machine. A consciousness. An ancient, malevolent mind tied to this world, or perhaps beneath it. The wardens were its hands, but the sleeper, that was the true threat. And somehow it had reached into space, into our fleet. How much longer before it reached beyond? Before it touched the Empire itself? That thought drove me harder. We had to reach the reactor. Had to end this. Another corridor, another ambush. 3 wardens this time, emerging from the bulkheads like smoke. Kellen cursed. We can't take them all. Fall back, I ordered. We retreated into a maintenance shaft, locking the hatch behind us. For the moment, we were safe. In the flickering half-light, Kellen slumped against the wall, shaking. Commander, what if the pulse beacon isn't enough? He asked quietly. What if no one listens? I met his gaze. Then we make sure there's nothing left for them to find. He nodded. No argument, No false hope, just grim resolve. We reached the reactor deck after what felt like hours. It was a scene from hell. The reactor chamber, once a pristine heart of fusion and steel, was warped, veins of black growth crawling across every surface, and at its center, something new. A figure, tall, human-shaped almost, but its skin was translucent, shot through with pulsing veins of shadow. Its eyes glowed with cold, unnatural light. And when it turned, I recognized the face. My second in command, the one dragged away on the bridge. Now, something else. It smiled. "Commander Theron, welcome. We have been waiting." The voice was layered, his voice and another beneath it, older, vast. Kellen raised his weapon, but I stopped him. "Number waste of ammo." I stepped forward. "What are you?" The thing tilted its head. "We are many. We are one. We are the Sleeper's will, and soon, you will be as well." I forced a grim smile. "Not today." Without warning, I triggered the reactor overload sequence on my wrist console. The thing hissed. "Foolish! You cannot—" But it was too late. The countdown had begun. Alarms blared. The chamber shook violently. Kellen looked at me, eyes wide. "We won't make it out." "I know," I said, "but the message is sent. That's enough." The creature lunged, but I fired, point blank. The blast knocked it back, giving us precious seconds. We fled the chamber as the ship began tearing itself apart. Explosions rocked the corridors. Fires consumed the walls. The air grew thin. By the time we reached the observation deck, the stars were spinning wildly. The Sleeper's voice filled the ship, deafening. "You cannot escape! You cannot—" And then, blinding light. The reactor went critical. I don't remember the explosion, only darkness, cold, and then silence. I awoke, drifting, somehow alive, in an escape pod I didn't remember boarding. Kellen was beside me, unconscious but breathing. The pod's beacon blinked weakly, transmitting, and through the cracked viewport, Earth hung below us, still whole, still waiting. The Sleeper remained. But so did we. And the warning was out there now. Maybe, just maybe, someone would listen this time. The emergency lights inside the pod flickered in a dying rhythm. Cold seeped into my bones. My breath came in shallow, frosted gasps. I could barely move, every muscle sluggish, every thought clouded with exhaustion. But I was alive. For now. Kellen stirred beside me, groaning softly. His face was pale, blood crusted along his temple. I leaned over and shook his shoulder. "Kellen," I rasped, voice raw. "Wake up!" His eyes fluttered open, glazed and unfocused at first. Then recognition sparked. "Commander, we made it?" "Of a sort," I said grimly. I looked through the viewport. Earth still loomed below us, vast, indifferent, its surface shrouded in clouds. My flagship was gone, atomized in the reactor blast. The fleet annihilated. Only this pod remained, a speck of debris in a graveyard orbit. And yet, somehow I felt it. The Sleeper was still aware of us. A presence pressed against my mind. Cold, ancient, patient. We hadn't escaped. Not truly. Not yet. I forced my numb fingers over the pod's cracked console. The systems were half dead, but the distress beacon still pulsed, a faint, rhythmic signal. I checked its frequency. Standard Imperial emergency code. It would take days to reach the nearest relay station. Weeks, perhaps, for anyone to respond. If anyone was left to respond. Kellen coughed, sitting up with effort. How long before we can burn clear?" "Engines?" I shook my head. "Dead. Power reserves barely keep life support running." He cursed softly. "Then we're stuck." "For now," I said. I scanned the console again, cycling through diagnostics. One thing stood out, a low-band signal still pinging from the wreckage field, A ship, damaged, derelict, but powered. I frowned. Looks like one of the corvettes survived. Relentless. Minimal power signature. Some kind of emergency shielding. Kellen followed my gaze. You think it's still intact? Enough to matter. He swallowed. And getting there? I gestured at the pod's manual controls. We have maneuvering thrusters, just enough. He nodded slowly. The unspoken risk hung between us, exposing ourselves again to the sleeper's gaze. But staying here wasn't an option. I keyed in the trajectory adjustments. The pod shuddered, its thrusters sputtering to life. Outside, debris drifted. Twisted hull fragments, shattered bulkheads, frozen bodies. A graveyard of war. As we moved through the wreckage, the pressure in my skull grew. That insistent presence, probing, testing. I heard it again, deep beneath thought. You will not flee. You will join us. I gritted my teeth, forcing the voice back. Not today, I muttered. Kellen looked at me, eyes sharp despite the fear. You hear it too? Yeah. He took a breath. Then let's show it we're not done. The pod's thrusters burned low as we approached the crippled Relentless. Its hull was scarred, its engine block shattered, but the docking bay remained partially intact. I guided us in with shaking hands. Metal scraped against metal. Alarms flared, the pod's clamps latched. We were in. Guns ready, we forced the hatch open. Darkness greeted us. The ship was a tomb. No lights, no life signs. We moved cautiously through the entryway, flashlights sweeping the corridors. The air stank of ozone and burnt flesh. We found the first bodies near engineering. A squad of Marines, armor blackened, weapons melted, but no sign of the wardens. That worried me more than seeing them. They were here. Somewhere. We reached the bridge after a slow, tense climb. Somehow power still flickered through the consoles, emergency batteries kicking in. I slid into the command chair, fingers flying over the cracked controls. Kellen stood watch at the hatch, weapon raised. After several long minutes, I found what we needed. The FTL core was ruined, but the auxiliary transmitter was functional. Barely. I rerouted the pulse beacon through it, boosting the signal. Kellen glanced over. Think it'll punch through the jamming? I didn't lie. Maybe. I triggered the transmission. A single message, repeated in all Imperial codes. This is Commander Theron. The Empire's 7th Fleet is lost. Earth is a quarantine world. Hostile. Unknown sentience. Planetary scale. Repeat. Do not approach Earth. Flee. Survive. The beacon pulsed out, weak but steady. I sat back, exhausted. Kellen exhaled. Now what? I looked at him, voice hard. Now, we kill this thing. He blinked. How? I pulled up the Relentless's deep scan records, a final log recorded during the battle. As I suspected, there was something beneath Earth's surface, a massive structure, kilometers wide, buried under the crust. Not human, not natural, and it was alive. I showed Kellen the data. His face paled. This is what's doing it, he whispered. I nodded. The sleeper. The source. I looked him in the eye. We finish this, or it will spread. To the Empire, to everything. He hesitated, then squared his shoulders. I'm with you, sir. We needed a ship, and there was only one choice. A shuttle, half buried in the wreckage of the Relentless's launch bay. It would be a death ride, but that didn't matter. We prepped it in silence. As we worked, the sleeper's voice returned, louder now, more insistent. You seek to strike us. You seek to destroy. Foolish. You will fail. You will join. I ignored it, focused on the task. Kellen caught my gaze. It's afraid. I nodded. Good. The shuttle was barely flyable, but it would do. We launched engines sputtering, and plunged toward Earth. The atmosphere burned around us. Systems screamed, but we held course. Through the clouds, the surface came into view. Scarred plains, twisted forests, crumbling ruins of ancient cities. And at the center, the signal source, a black spire rising from a cratered wasteland, pulsing with unnatural light. We came in fast, evasive, no missiles, no defenses. The sleeper didn't need them. As we neared the spire, the pressure in my skull became agony. Blood trickled from my nose. Kellen gasped beside me, hands clutching the console. But we pressed on. Landing was rough, the shuttle skidding across broken stone. We emerged weapons ready. The air here was wrong, thick, humming with unseen power. At the spire's base, an entrance, open, waiting. Kellen looked at me. Trap. Of course, I said, but we're going in. He grinned, fierce, defiant. Damn right. We entered. Inside, darkness. Silence. Then whispers. You belong. You belong. You belong. We fought through the corridors, each step a battle of will. Wardens attacked, but we were ready. Pulse rounds, grenades. We forced a path, bodies falling behind us. At the heart of the spire, the core chamber. A vast organic structure, like a living brain, pulsing with light. The sleeper, it spoke, 1,000 voices. You cannot kill what does not die. I raised my weapon. We'll see, I said. We detonated everything. Charges, grenades, plasma rounds. The chamber erupted, a storm of fire and light. The last thing I saw, the sleeper screaming, its form shattering. Then, darkness. I awoke again, on scorched earth, alive, Kellen beside me, bloody but breathing. Above, the spire was gone. Only silence remained. I looked at the sky. The beacon still pulsed. The fight wasn't over, but we'd struck the first blow. Kellen stirred. Commander? I helped him sit up. We're not done. He grinned weakly. Then let's finish it. The sky above was bruised and broken. Dark clouds roiled where the spire had once stood. The ground still shook beneath us, tremors rippling through the scorched earth. But for the first time since we'd come to this cursed world, the air felt still, the whispers had stopped. For now. I sat back on the cracked stone, pulse rifle across my lap, blood drying in streaks down my face. Every muscle ached. My head throbbed like a drum. But I was alive. Kellen, too, though barely. He coughed hard, blood flecking his lips. Commander, did we do it? I scanned the crater where the sleeper's core had been. Smoke poured from ruptured veins of black stone, the surrounding walls warped and collapsing inward. The pulsing light. Gone. I wanted to believe we'd won, but deep down, I knew better. This was just one piece, I said grimly. The spire was a conduit, not the source. Kellen wiped blood from his mouth, grimacing. Then where's the source? I looked to the horizon. Black storm clouds gathered to the east, lightning crackling through the sky. Underground, I said. It's buried deep. The spire was just an antenna, a fragment. His shoulders sagged. So all this, and it's still alive, I nodded. But it felt us. We heard it. And it knows we're not afraid. A faint chirp from my wrist console caught my attention, a weak signal coming through the atmosphere. I tapped in a command, filtering the static. A voice broke through, faint, distorted. Theron, this is Outpost Delta 7. Survivors. Need assistance. Repeat, Delta 7. I stiffened. There are others. Kellen's eyes widened. An outpost? Empire? I shook my head. Not one of ours. Must be human. That complicated things. The Empire's doctrine had been clear. Humanity on Earth was considered a primitive, contaminated species. No contact, no interference. But after what we'd seen, I no longer gave a damn about doctrine. Living minds meant potential allies, and if they'd survived the sleeper's influence this long, they knew something we didn't. I rose to my feet, checking the battered remains of my gear. "We're going to them." Kellen grimaced but stood. "Which direction?" I checked the signal trace. "East, about 50 clicks, through the storm." He gave a tight nod. "Then let's move." We scavenged what we could from the wrecked shuttle. Rations, medkits, extra charges. No working long-range comms, no transport. We'd have to go on foot. As we moved out, I felt it again. Faint, like a memory. The sleeper's presence, deep beneath the ground. It wasn't dead, but it was watching. The landscape we crossed was a nightmare. Forests of blackened, petrified trees, rivers of sludge that hissed and steamed. Strange growths clung to the rocks, pulsing sacks of flesh-like material twitching as we passed. Sometimes we heard voices, faint, distant cries, but there were no signs of life. Psychic residue, Varen would have called it, echoes of the sleeper's victims. We ignored them and kept moving. By the second day, the storm hit us full force. Razor-sharp winds howled through the ruins. Acid rain hissed against our suits. Visibility dropped to meters. We pushed on, driven by sheer will. Kellen stumbled often, his injuries slowing him. I supported him as best I could, both of us running on fumes. Still, we didn't stop. The signal from Delta 7 grew stronger, and so did the sleeper's voice. That night, huddled in the ruins of an old structure, the whispers returned, stronger than ever. "You fight, but you will fail. You will serve. You will be one." I gritted my teeth, shoving the voice out of my mind. Kellen wasn't so lucky. I found him crouched in a corner, shaking, rifle in his mouth. "Put it down," I barked, grabbing the weapon. He fought me, wild-eyed, then collapsed, sobbing. I can't, shut it out." I knelt beside him, gripping his shoulder. "Listen to me. You're stronger than this. We both are. It wants us broken. That's how it wins." He looked up, tears streaking his dirt-covered face. "How do you fight something in your head?" I met his gaze. "You remember who you are. You remember why you fight. You don't let it take that." Slowly, his breathing calmed. His grip on the rifle loosened. I'm with you, Commander," he whispered. I nodded. "Good. Now get some rest. We move at dawn." By morning, the storm had broken. We pressed on, weary but determined. Midday, we crested a ridge, and there it was. Delta 7, a fortified compound, crude but functional. Scrap metal walls, turrets rigged from old tech, antennas bristling like quills, and people, real people, armed, alert, moving along the battlements. Survivors. Kellen managed a weak grin. "Never thought I'd be happy to see primitives." I allowed a grim smile. "They've lasted this long. That makes them worth listening to." We approached slowly, weapons lowered. Guards spotted us immediately, raising rifles, old ballistic models. A voice barked from a loudspeaker. "Identify yourselves!" I stepped forward. "Commander Theron, Imperial Fleet. We're not hostile. We received your distress call." There was a long pause. Then the gates creaked open. We were met by a tall, grizzled man, late 50s, one eye milky with scarring. He wore mismatched armor and carried a massive shotgun. "I'm Warden Grant," he said bluntly. "You the ones that took out the Spire?" I raised a brow. "News travels fast." He snorted. When the whispers stopped, we noticed. His gaze raked over us. "You're lucky you weren't torn apart getting here. Come on." Inside, the outpost was a rough but functional settlement. Generators humming, makeshift clinics, weapons workshops. Men and women worked with grim efficiency. These weren't primitives. These were survivors of a war we barely understood. Grant led us to a command room, maps, data screens, and a battered holotable. He gestured for us to sit. Talk. I didn't waste time. We came with the fleet. The Empire ignored the warnings, sent us to conquer. The fleet's gone. The sleeper killed them. He nodded grimly. Not the first to try. I leaned forward. We hit one of its spires, but it's still alive. We want to finish the job. You know how? Grant studied me, eyes hard. Maybe, but it won't be easy. He activated the holotable. An image of the planet appeared, overlaid with deep scans. He pointed to a region near the equator, a vast chasm. That's the source, the heart. Kellen frowned. The sleeper's core? Grant nodded. Old tech, older than human history. Some say it came from the stars. Others say it was here before Earth even formed. I absorbed the information. How do we get to it? He smiled grimly. You don't. No one's ever come back from the heart. The wardens guard it, and worse. I met his gaze. We're not no one. We've already faced them. Grant held my stare, then nodded. Maybe you've got a chance. He laid out what little intel they had, maps of ancient tunnels, reports of failed expeditions. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As we planned, I felt it again, the sleeper's gaze brushing my mind. It knew what we were doing, and it was afraid. I stood, voice cold. We move at first light. Prep what you can spare. Grant grinned. You've got balls, Commander. I'll give you that. I looked him dead in the eye. I've got something better. A reason to end this. Kellen rose beside me. Together. Grant extended a scarred hand. Then welcome to the war. We shook on it. And the hunt for the heart began. First light came too soon. The eastern sky barely showed a sliver of dull gray when the outpost stirred to life. Men and women filed through the compound, gearing up, checking weapons, loading what little supplies they could spare. There was no chatter, no boasting. These people had seen too much to waste words. Every glance, every nod was an understanding. Many of us wouldn't return. I tightened the straps on my battered armor, checking my rifle for the 5th time. Kellen stood beside me, pale but steady. His injuries were healing slowly, though the mental scars ran deeper. You sure you're up for this? I asked. He smirked faintly. If you're going, I'm going. I clapped his shoulder. Good. Grant approached, flanked by 2 of his best, a lean scout named Dax, and a hulking brute they called Mason. Both had eyes that had seen too many horrors. Grant dropped a rough map on the table. Routes through the old tunnels beneath Sector 12 was an ancient metro network before the wars. Goes deep, real deep. Last team that tried made it halfway before. Well, his jaw tightened. We'll go as far as we can. After that, you're on your own. I met his gaze. Understood. Our team was small, just 6 of us. Any more would attract too much attention. Grant, Dax, Mason, Kellen, myself, and one surprise. A woman named Arden, Delta 7's last surviving tech specialist. Slim, sharp-eyed, carrying a pack of makeshift EMP devices and data probes. You'll need me, she said flatly when Grant introduced her. You're fighting more than flesh. That thing is part machine, part signal. I didn't argue. Then stay close. We moved out as the sun barely crested the horizon, slipping through the broken outskirts of what had once been a thriving city. Towers lay in ruins, streets choked with debris and strange fungal growths. The whispers had returned, faint, probing. You seek us, you will join us. But they were weaker here. The destruction of the spire had bought us breathing room. We reached the old metro entrance by midday. a yawning black tunnel beneath a shattered highway, half choked with rubble and rust. Mason forced the rusted gates open with a groan of metal. The air that rushed out was cold and foul, like breathing ancient dust. Grant lit a flare. No turning back. We descended into darkness. The tunnels were a labyrinth, crumbling platforms, flooded shafts, collapsed ceilings. The further we went, the stranger it became. Flesh-like growths pulsed along the walls, strange symbols, not of human design, etched into the stone. Lights flickered without power, the laws of nature frayed here. We moved slow, weapons raised, every sound echoed endlessly but water dripping, distant groans of shifting stone. Twice we spotted wardens, drifting shapes in the distance, but they didn't attack. They watched, waiting. Hours passed, time lost meaning. Then we found the first bodies. An old expedition team, skeletons fused to the walls, faces frozen in agony. Some wore imperial uniforms, others unknown. Their weapons lay rusted and useless. Kellen swallowed hard. "How long have people been trying this?" Grant grimaced. "Longer than anyone admits." We pressed on. Deeper still, the tunnels changed. The stone gave way to something else, smooth black surfaces that hummed beneath our boots. The walls seemed to breathe. Arden scanned the material, frowning. Not metal, not stone. Some kind of biosynthetic compound. Dax muttered, "Feels like a throat." No one disagreed. At the lowest level, we reached a vast cavern, a natural rift stretching down into blackness. An ancient freight elevator hung over the chasm, cables frayed, controls dead. Arden rigged a manual bypass. Sparks flew. The platform groaned to life. We loaded on, tense. As the elevator descended, the whispers surged. "Closer, so close! Welcome!" The drop took nearly an hour. No light below, just endless black. Then a faint glow. The heart. The cavern opened into a vast underground complex, a nightmare of spires, veins of pulsing light, strange geometric patterns that hurt the eyes. At its center, a colossal sphere, suspended in a web of tendrils pulsing with every beat of the sleeper's will. The heart. Our team disembarked slowly, weapons ready. The air here was thick, every breath an effort. Thoughts felt sluggish, memories bleeding into the present. Kellen stumbled. I caught him. "Stay with me," I said. He nodded weakly. "Trying. It's in my head." Arden set up signal dampeners, planting her devices around the perimeter. "It's broadcasting," she said urgently. "On every frequency. It's trying to hijack us." Grant looked grim. "Then we shut it down. Fast." We advanced. Wardens emerged, dozens of them, flowing from the walls, shadows given form. No more watching. Now they attacked. The fight was brutal. Pulse rounds tore through the dark. Explosions rocked the chamber. Mason fought like a beast, shotgun booming. Dax's rifle sang. Grant laid down cover fire. Kellen and I moved as one, clearing paths, keeping Arden protected. But they kept coming. I spotted an access conduit, leading into the heart's core. "This way," I shouted. We forced our way through, grenades blasting a path. The team followed, bloodied but alive. Inside the conduit, a narrow bridge over a pit of churning energy. At its end, the heart's true core. A throne-like structure, pulsing with unnatural life. And upon it, a figure. Human-shaped, pale, eyes burning with dark light. It spoke, 1,000 voices. "Welcome, Commander Theron. We have waited for you." I recognized the face. Varen, my science officer, consumed, transformed. Rage surged through me. I raised my weapon. "I'm not here to join you." The sleeper laughed, a sound that shook the chamber. "You are already ours. Your thoughts, your memories. You cannot win." I fired. Pulse rounds slammed into the heart, light flaring, tendrils thrashing. The chamber convulsed. Arden shouted over the chaos, "Planting charges! Cover me!" We held the line as she rigged the explosives. Every second a battle. Kellen fought like a man possessed, driving back the wardens with savage fury. Then, the charges armed. Arden screamed, "Now! Run!" We sprinted for the exit as the heart shuddered, cracks spreading through its form. The sleeper's voice roared, "You cannot escape. You are mine." But we kept running. The charges detonated. Light consumed everything. When I awoke, I was on the surface, dragged clear by Grant and Mason. Kellen lay nearby, alive, barely. Arden crouched beside him, exhausted but intact. The earth trembled. The sky shifted. The sleeper's voice was gone. I looked to Grant. "Is it over?" I asked. He shook his head slowly. "Number, you heard it. Bad, but it's not dead." I stood, fire in my veins. "Then we finished the job." Kellen stirred, smiling weakly. "Damn right." Grant grinned. "You Empire types might be stubborn after all." I met his gaze. "We're not Empire anymore," I said. "Now we're just soldiers." And the war for Earth had only begun. The sleeper was wounded but not dead. You could feel it in the air, charged, tense. The tremors under our boots grew stronger each hour. The sky had turned a permanent ash gray, the sun a dim blot barely piercing the clouds. After the detonation in the heart chamber, we'd barely made it back to Delta 7 alive. A mad scramble through collapsing tunnels, half the team carrying Kellen as his body finally gave out. We lost Mason on the way out. The big man had stayed behind to collapse a passage and buy us time. He never made it back. Grant hadn't spoken a word since. Now we stood on the outpost walls, watching the horizon. It pulsed. Dark shapes moved in the distance, an endless tide forming beyond the ruins. A storm was coming. Arden worked furiously in the comm tower, rigging a long-range boost to the pulse beacon. The last message we'd sent was still active, faint but alive. "Someone out there must have heard us," she muttered. "They have to." But I wasn't counting on rescue, not anymore. This was our fight now. Kellen was awake again, barely holding himself upright. His face was drawn, skin pale, but the fire in his eyes was back. "Commander," he said quietly, "it's moving." I looked out across the ruined cityscape. He was right. The sleeper was adapting. At midday, the first attack hit. A wave of wardens, more numerous than anything we'd faced before. Their forms had changed, no longer gaunt shadows. Now they were fused with metal, bone, and strange crystal growths that reflected our energy rounds. They struck the perimeter hard. Delta 7's defenders fought with brutal resolve, ballistic rounds, homemade explosives, plasma charges. But for every warden we dropped, 2 more took its place. I fought side by side with Kellen on the south wall, rifle burning hot in my hands. His aim was slower, weaker, but every shot counted. At one point, a warden nearly reached the barricade. I vaulted the edge and slammed into it, pulse knife driving deep into the creature's skull. It shrieked, convulsed, then dissolved. We held the line. Barely. By nightfall, the walls were slick with blood and ash. Grant surveyed the wreckage grimly. "First wave. More coming. It won't stop now. We pissed it off good." I nodded. "Then we end it, one way or another." Arden called us to the command bunker at dawn. She'd finally cracked a deeper layer of the heart's signal structure, a secondary pulse that hadn't gone silent when we destroyed the core. She pointed to the readout, a rhythmic signal coming from off-world. Kellen frowned. "Another spire?" Arden shook her head. "Number worse, a failsafe. It's calling something." Grant leaned in. "Reinforcements?" Arden met my gaze. "Number A failsafe to spread the infection. Off this planet." My blood ran cold. "A failsafe to infect the Empire." I slammed a fist into the table. How long? Arden hesitated. It's accelerating. The pulse is building, maybe a day, 2, max. Grant cursed. If that thing gets loose... I didn't need him to finish. The Empire, the entire sector, would fall. Kellen looked at me, jaw set. We hit it first. We finish this. I nodded. We find the source of that signal, and we destroy it, or die trying. Grant prepped a new team, smaller this time. The outpost couldn't spare many. Kellen, still recovering, refused to stay behind. I didn't argue. Arden came with us, carrying her makeshift signal disruptors. Dax volunteered. Ode Mason one, he said simply. Grant himself suited up. If this is the last run, I'm seeing it through. We moved fast, following Arden's triangulation through the ruins of the old orbital defense network. What we found froze us in place. A ship, half buried in the earth, ancient, not human, organic metal, spined and curved, a vessel of unknown origin. Its hull pulsed with the same sick light as the heart. Arden scanned it. The failsafe. It's launching from this. Grant swore. It was always meant to spread, not just hold Earth. Kellen looked grim. Then we blow it to hell. We breached the hull at first light. Inside, a maze of alien architecture. The air was thick with spores, the walls alive with a faint pulse. Wardens filled the corridors, faster now, more aggressive. We fought room by room, grenades, rifles, knives when ammo ran dry. Dax took a hit to the leg. We carried him on. No turning back. Deep in the ship's heart, we found the core chamber, a massive crystalline array, its light pulsing faster with each second. Arden cursed. It's close! Minutes, maybe! We planted charges fast, covering Arden as she hacked the control nodes. The sleeper spoke again, louder than ever. Fools, you cannot stop what has begun. You will be one. All will be one. Kellen gritted his teeth, blood running from his nose. Not today. Arden triggered the overload sequence. The chamber began to collapse. We fought our way out under a storm of shrieking wardens. Grant was hit, chest torn open. He forced the rest of us onward, bleeding out. I'm not making it, he rasped. Finish it. Go. We obeyed. The ship erupted behind us in a pillar of black fire. The failsafe, gone. Back at Delta 7, the change was immediate. The sky lightened. The tremors eased. The whispers stopped. Arden slumped against a wall, exhausted. It severed, for now. I looked out over the battered walls of the outpost. Survivors tended to the wounded. The sleeper was wounded, deeply this time, but not dead. Kellen limped over. Commander, the Empire may have heard our beacon. If they come... I met his gaze. Then they better be ready for the truth. As the sun set, I stood atop the wall, rifle in hand. This wasn't over, but now we had a chance. And if the Empire came, I'd be waiting. 3 days passed since we destroyed the failsafe ship. 3 days of uneasy quiet. The skies above Delta 7 had cleared, at least as much as they ever would. The endless clouds had thinned, patches of sunlight breaking through for the first time in living memory. The air still tasted of ash and metal, but the oppressive weight that had gripped the world was lessened. The sleeper was hurt, badly, but not dead. You could still feel it beneath your boots, deep in the bones of the earth, a distant pulse, weaker now, but still alive, still watching. Kellen and I stood atop the southern wall, surveying what remained of the outpost. Delta 7 had survived. Barely. A third of its defenders were dead. The rest were exhausted, battered, running on stubborn will. The wardens hadn't attacked again, not since the ship burned, but that worried me more than if they had. It meant the sleeper was changing tactics, thinking. Arden joined us, her usual sharp edge dulled by exhaustion. "Intercepted a new signal," she said grimly. "Low band. Not from the sleeper this time, from orbit." Kellen stiffened. "Imperial?" Arden nodded. "Destroyer group. Picked up our beacon. They're on approach." I exhaled slowly. The Empire had finally heard us. But this wasn't good news. Kellen glanced at me. "If they land, and they don't listen." I nodded. "Then they'll feed it." An emergency council was called. What was left of the outpost's leadership, Grant's second-in-command, Arden, Dax on a stretcher, Kellen, and myself. The situation was clear. The Empire's fleet would arrive in a day. Standard doctrine meant immediate reconnaissance, ground teams, survey parties. Unaware of what still slept beneath the surface. If they landed before we warned them, before we explained, they'd trigger another awakening. A worse one. The sleeper wasn't done. It had been holding back, adapting, learning. If the Empire came in force, thinking this was just a salvage op, it would be the 7th Fleet all over again, or worse. Dax rasped from his stretcher. "Then we stop them, however we can." I looked at Arden. "Can we reach them before they drop?" She hesitated. "The comms here can't punch through their fleet encryption. Too old, too weak." Kellen's voice was flat. "Then we need something stronger." We had one option. An old orbital uplink station, buried in the mountains north of the ruins. Pre-Empire tech, hardened against interference. If we could reach it, we could send a direct command override. Force the fleet to hold position, delay landing. But it was deep in no man's land. Past the worst of the old war zones. Sleeper territory. I didn't hesitate. "We go, now." Kellen nodded instantly. Arden, too. Dax tried to rise but sagged back, cursing. "You'd better come back." I gripped his arm. "We will." We moved fast, stripped down to bare essentials. The sleeper wasn't idle. The deeper we pushed north, the stronger the pull became. Whispers returned, subtler now, more insidious. Why fight? Why bleed? When peace awaits, unity, an end to pain. Kellen fought it with clenched fists, sweat pouring down his face. Arden's breath came in sharp gasps, her will stretched thin. Even I felt it gnawing at the edges of my mind. Memories surfaced. Faces of the dead, failures, regrets, the temptation to just stop. But I'd come too far for that. We all had. By nightfall, we reached the base of the mountain. The uplink station loomed above, a skeletal tower, half collapsed, its dishes still barely intact. The way up was a gauntlet, the path twisted and broken, the very stone alive with pulsing veins. Wardens waited in the shadows. We hit them hard, grenades clearing nests, pulse rifles burning through the dark. Kellen fought with a grim fury, each shot precise. Arden held the rear, her disruptor packs frying any psychic pulses that flared too close. I led from the front, carving a path step by bloody step. By dawn, we reached the station. It was worse than we'd hoped. Half-powered, systems failing, interface corroded by decades of neglect and sleeper corruption. Arden dove into the controls, fingers flying. "I can get a signal out," she panted, "but I need time. 10 minutes." That was when the ground shook, a deep, resonant pulse that rattled stone and bone alike. "Enough!" The sleeper's voice roared through our skulls. "You cannot defy me. You will become me." The mountain split. A new breed of wardens poured forth, vast, towering things of fused flesh and metal, eyes burning with hate. We formed a perimeter around Arden. Kellen beside me, teeth bared. "Hold the line." I nodded. No retreat, no surrender. The battle was savage. We fought like madmen, pulse rifles overheating, blades flashing, the air filled with smoke and blood. For every beast we dropped, another rose. But we did not break. Through it all, Arden worked, sweat pouring, hands blistered. 5 more minutes, she screamed. I fought harder. One warden nearly took me down. Kellen shot it off my back with a roar. Then, the pulse changed. A massive shadow loomed beyond the ridge. The sleeper itself was rising, not an avatar, not a projection, the true form, an ancient, star-born mind made manifest in a colossal shape of writhing tendrils and shimmering void light. We were out of time. Arden screamed, "Signal ready! Transmitting now!" She hit the command key. A piercing pulse blasted skyward, the override racing toward the fleet above. The sleeper struck. A wave of force slammed into us, bone-breaking, mind-shattering. Kellen was hurled against the wall, blood spraying. I was driven to my knees, vision blurring, but the signal was away. Above, in the clouds, Imperial ships flickered, their descent halted, confused. The override had worked. I forced myself to my feet. The sleeper's true form towered above, tendrils writhing. "You cannot win. This world is mine." I leveled my rifle. "Not while I breathe." Arden crawled to the disruptor packs, last resort charges. "I can overload them," she gasped. "Point blank, take it with us." I looked to Kellen, barely conscious but alive. To Arden, fierce to the last. We had 1 shot left. I nodded. "Do it." We charged together, straight into the heart of the beast. Bullets, blades, fire, no fear, no hesitation. Arden slammed the disruptors into the sleeper's core. Energy built, a rising scream of light and force. She looked back at me, smiling faintly. "For the living," she whispered. Then the world exploded. I woke to silence. Ash fell from the sky like snow. The mountain was shattered, the sleeper's form gone, vaporized. I lay on broken stone, armor scorched, lungs burning. Beside me, Kellen, alive barely. Of Arden, no trace, only her shattered pack. The sky above was clear, stars shining through for the first time in who knew how long. Delta 7's beacon flickered on my console. The Empire's ships still held position, waiting. I keyed the communication. "This is Commander Theron," I rasped. "Sleeper neutralized. Planet not secure. Advise full quarantine. Permanent." I looked to Kellen. "We're not done," I said. "There will be others, other worlds, other threats." He smiled weakly. "Then we fight." I stood, helping him up. Together we looked out over the broken land. A victory bought in blood. But a victory. And so began the long war for the stars.